What is up, everybody? Welcome back. I'm Nate Liss of DynastyRankings.com. You can find me on Twitter at an outraged Jew. And I wanted to share with you guys this week a super fun 12-team best ball dynasty draft that we just did for the Dynasty Rankings Listeners League. We got 12 people together from in the Discord group, which you guys, you hear me mention it all the time on the videos. If you want to join 650 plus members, super active, super smart individuals that are constantly talking trades and rumors and analysis and theory, then go to the link in the description, join for free, come at me when you're there. We have a Rate My Roster channel, a trade channel where you can post a trade that you're considering and you'll either get flamed or not flamed. People are very supportive. They'll tell you what they think about the trade. They'll help you decide if what you're about to do is going to be an absolute gut bomb to your roster. They can help you. I can help you. And what we did is part of being in the Discord. One of the cool parts of it is every Friday, I go in there and I pick a topic that to me I think is somewhat funny, has some truth to it. We can stretch it a little bit. And I ask the crowd, I say, look, give me a reason. Give me positive reasons why this player is going to fire, or this situation can happen, or why this guy is going to have a fourth-year breakout after not doing anything in his career like Paris Campbell. Do that for me, and I will give you XP. And I'm giving out arbitrary XP, or it was arbitrary until we started the first listener league. And what we did was we went back and looked at the leaderboard and picked the top 12 people in the Discord, gave them an opportunity to join a brand new league, which we're going to look at here in just a second. And it was a lot of fun. Again, 12 people in this league, had a blast, did the derby style is how we picked our draft positions. So essentially we randomized the order. Then from there, the person that was sitting in 101 got the first chance to select where they wanted to draft from. So you don't have to select at 101. You can go to the turn and pick at 112. You can pick at 111. You can pick in the middle. So the first person in the randomized order picks first. Second person picks what position they want second, and so on till you get to the last guy who's stuck with whatever is remaining. In this particular draft, I decided that I wanted to go at 106 for no real reason whatsoever. I don't often draft from the 106 spot. A lot of my drafts, I've ended up at the very back. I've ended up at the very front. So I figured, what the hell? I want to be somewhere in the middle. I want to see what I can do in this draft, see what I can come up with, see what kind of situations I get stuck in. And in this particular draft, it was really interesting because we did have quite a run on quarterbacks early within the first couple rounds, and it really forced a couple people's hands. We saw some value fall really far in this draft. So I wanted to just go over the top of it, look at some of these rosters, decide if any of them are better than my roster. I'm not sure that any of them are, but I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. It was a sharp room. Obviously, if you're one of the 12 highest ranking members in terms of XP in the Discord, then you must be a sharp. There's just no doubt about it. So what I want to do is dive right into this draft. I want to look at my roster. Then we'll go back and we'll see how all of this happened. Now, admittedly, I got a lot going on here, so I'm going to try not to fumble my way through this video as I'm doing it in real time, essentially. But we are going to pop over and look at my roster as it exists today. And I'm going to make up for a mistake that I made in the past. You see me now, I'm in a box in the corner. When I did my orphan team rebuild video, which again, you guys can find if you go to my page, I didn't really put anything in the corner. And I talked to some members of the Discord, some patrons about that, patreon.com/I'm outraged. And they're like, hey, you got to put a video of yourself in the corner, man. It's good to hear you. It's good to see the cursor going, but we want to see your face. Okay, so I got all my stuff going on in the background. My man Blitzing Buzzard hooked me up with the great all-time tweet from this guy. And so here we are. Boom. Let's look at this roster real quick. So let me switch screens momentarily. Let me raise this up a little more if I can. Oh, apparently I can't raise it up anymore. This is fantastic. In real time, can't raise it up anymore. All right. So here we are. We're looking at the roster. And we'll talk about how we got here. But this is what I've got. 12-team, super flex, best ball league. Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, J.K. Dobbins, T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Darren Waller, Rashad White, Christian Watson, George Pickens, Michael Gallup. Then we saw Mac Jones there. This thing jumped ahead on me. Mac Jones, James Robinson. He's coming back. We're hearing some positive news about him, so that's pretty interesting. Marcus Mariota, Hunter Henry, Marlon Mack, Van Jefferson, Curtis Samuel, Deonta Foreman. Once upon a time, I fought to the death on his behalf. Will Fuller, not William. Corey Davis, Gardner Minshew, Anthony Schwartz, Jonnu Smith, Damian Williams, Kellen Mond, Chris Carson, Nick Westbrook, Auden Tate, Mike Davis. I'm not even going to say the last people on this roster. So, listen, here's the deal. One thing I know about this roster when I look back at it, and we'll kind of talk about this as we get into the later rounds, there are so many dart throws that never pan out the further you get into these drafts that one of my goals was to end up with marquee names, end up with guys that have once upon a time had hype behind them, had value behind them. Some of these guys are still players that I think people do believe in. Maybe not to the degree Corey Davis, like we had year 1, year 2, even potentially year 3. But we know that Corey Davis is still young enough. We know that there's a talent profile there. And if he suddenly plays well, that's a player that I got much later that could have trade value. So I kind of leveraged some of that opportunity versus taking big swings on guys that I know will never play. And I saw this happen a lot. There was just guys that they will never pan out. It just is not going to happen. They don't have the draft capital. They don't have the support. The market has zero faith in them. They've never had it. They will never have it. And I just really didn't want to swing at any of those players. So if I was sitting at a draft slot, and you can see here, 18th round, 19th round, 20th round, when I'm sitting in a draft slot where I have to decide who am I going to take, player X, who's the 4th or 5th receiver on a roster that might not throw the ball even that much, that has at least a star in the roster already? Or do I want to take a swing at Will Fuller, a guy that we saw, the year that he was on the PEDs, really showed out, could land on a good roster. He's not on one yet. And then suddenly he could start playing well and he could have trade value. He could be a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. I don't know how well he plays, but we know that there was faith in him once upon a time. And for some people, that faith still exists, especially for teams that are contending if he comes back out. Now, if he flops, guess what? The guy that I was going to take there was probably going to flop anyways. Listen, nobody's going to trade you a 2023 2nd round pick for one of these 5th round draft picks, Khalil Shakir, who might have a game suddenly. It just doesn't happen that way. So I wanted to take a swing on some of these more marquee names through history. I tried to avoid guys that were too old. So that was kind of my strategy going into this. So that's my roster as it stands. So let's go through the draft here. Just going to kind of breeze through it. We had some really good people in this draft. One thing I'm going to do as I go, obviously, around my face right here up above, you guys can see that I am blockading, obstructing, if you will, some of the information. So I will make sure that you guys do not miss a thing as we do this. So first round, you can see this thing started out super quarterback heavy. Sitting in the 106 spot, Lamar Jackson's been sliding a bit, despite the fact that there's been injuries. This offense hasn't been great, lost all of his running backs once upon a time. But you go back to 2019 and you see a player with maybe the highest ceiling at the position other than possibly Josh Allen. And I mean, you could say Patrick Mahomes to a degree, but that rushing floor is what puts them in another tier at times. So Kyler Murray. So to get a guy like Lamar Jackson at 1-6, once upon a time he was debatably the 101. Josh Allen has since moved up there. Patrick Mahomes is always up there. Justin Herbert very clearly up there. So I really like the fact that he fell here. Trey Lance is continuing to get pushed up quite a bit. It doesn't surprise me with the hype around him. It doesn't surprise me for the reasons that I just said, that guys like Lamar, Kyler, Josh Allen are so favorable because they've got that rushing upside. Lance, we still don't know a whole lot about him in terms of what his NFL capabilities will be, but he's, of course, getting hype from the organization. Simultaneously, we've heard bad things about him, but nonetheless, that's the reason he ends up there. And then you see, this is pretty much what I would expect to see in the first round, more or less. A lot of quarterbacks, but I think people were concerned that they weren't going to get their guy. And there's a pretty serious drop-off at the quarterback position. So I think everybody was scrambling to make sure that they got a upside, talented quarterback early. So I don't really have any problem with any of these picks. My guy Blitzing Buzzard, as I shouted out for this great Twitter piece behind me. He got Jonathan Taylor at 1.9. So really good spot to get him there. You know, I've seen Taylor go much earlier than this in the past. I mean, once upon a time, CMC was going way before this. So that felt like a value. Russell Wilson, I mean, 33 years old, going on 34 at some point, new offense. Hopefully he gets to throw the ball more than we've seen. So that's a value. And then, of course, Chase and Jefferson always pretty much falling into that round 1 draft capital. But Lane here, I loved what happened for Lane here. We did a 3rd round reversal, which for those of you guys that don't know, it kicks back over to the 3rd. So at the end of the 2nd, the round starts back over at 3, which helps balance out, you know, the advantage that guys early in the draft might get on a guy like Josh Allen. But that gets nullified when a guy like Lane gets Jalen Hurts at 2.1. I know the concern with Hurts for people is that, what's his longevity? How long will he be there? They've got draft picks next year. Listen, he was good last year in an offense that was questionable at best. He got an additional weapon this year in A.J. Brown. I think the team looks a lot better. So it's a hell of a value there for a guy that finishes the QB9 overall, I believe. So what a swing to end up Jefferson and Hurts and then get an opportunity here. He comes back and he gets Kupp later. Pitts and Andrews, again, this is tight end premium if I didn't mention that. Not surprised. Nothing in here is super crazy to me. I ended up going McCaffrey at 2.7. Look, McCaffrey's 26 years old. I talked about this on a video that I did on this channel before. You guys can go check that out. It was one of my burst series where I try and do a shorter form video, 7 to 10 minutes. Did it about Christian McCaffrey. Talked about last year, even with the injuries, when you looked at 4 of the 6 games that he played in or so, he was averaging 25, almost 26 fantasy points per game when he had a 60% snap share. And that was at least 4 points per game more than Jonathan Taylor was averaging in an absolute smash season on his behalf. So I don't think Christian McCaffrey is done by a long shot. So I was very confident taking him here. Obviously so confident that I didn't take Breece Hall, that I didn't take DeAndre Swift. I mean, I love Hall. We love the talent profile situation. He has very little competition. Michael Carter's good, but he's not Breece Hall. DeAndre Swift's points per game were excellent, but they've yet to show that he's going to be the guy. And there is no running back short of Jonathan Taylor. But again, guys, touchdowns are not sticky. Ask Alvin Kamara. Year to year, they're unpredictable. Now, what is predictable is typically red zone opportunity, and Jonathan Taylor had the most in the league by a huge margin. So you can make the argument that the touchdowns are a little stickier in his case if Indy's going to continue to be in the red zone as often as they are. Obviously, if they did that with Wentz, imagine what they'll do with Matt Ryan. But I didn't go Swift. I decided I wanted to go with Christian McCaffrey. His upside is essentially unrivaled when he's being used at his ceiling. Age 26, again, I've got this dream, this pie in the sky theory that one day Christian McCaffrey will end up a slot option, a guy that maybe turns into more of an Austin Eckler type player where we see him carry the ball a little less, which he probably should, but we see that maximized opportunity through the air. Then we keep going here. Matt Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and, make our way back over here. Boom, Cooper Kupp. Javonte Williams, kind of a slide from where he was earlier in the year prior to Melvin Gordon re-signing. I don't think there should be a huge fear here, but Javonte Williams was great. But obviously people were concerned that the production may not be there because Gordon was as good as he was. We don't think that Gordon is going away in totality. So a little bit of fear made him slide. None of this is too crazy to me here, right? Like Metcalf, Derek Carr, Derek Carr goes in the 3rd, but Derek Carr's got a lot of upside. And again, I think people were concerned that you had to get a quarterback. If he doesn't take a QB here, if Buzzer doesn't take a QB here, who knows what happens? And I should probably look back and make sure that he didn't pick someone else. Okay, so he picks one later. But so you want to get a guy, you want to have some scratch in the game. Looking at the rest of these picks, nothing too crazy. Then I go T. Higgins here. Went T. Higgins over DJ Moore, went T. Higgins over Waddle, over Diggs, over Pittman, Deontay Johnson. It's pretty obvious why, right? I put out a tweet earlier in the year that basically talked about last year when T. Higgins and Jamar Chase played on the field at the exact same time. Only one time in the year did they both finish as top 25 or better wide receivers. Now, that's a shocking statistic. But if you go to the playoffs, they were both absolute monsters. Okay, we saw what we needed to see. They're both monsters. Is T. Higgins a top 5 dynasty asset? It's hard for me to say because this is one of those conflated issues where is T. Higgins going to finish as a top 5 wide receiver? Maybe, probably not. It's very rare for two guys to finish in the top 10, but we've seen it with Antonio Brown and Juju Smith. We've seen it with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen. Joe Burrow's certainly the guy that can get him there, but it's an interesting thing because T. Higgins is being pushed into the top 5, where Jamar Chase very clearly has the upside to finish as the wide receiver 1 or top 5 easy, where T. Higgins might finish as the wide receiver 12, but he's being valued as the wide receiver 5. So it's an interesting dichotomy. I appreciate his upside. I hope that what we saw in the playoffs is what we'll see going forward. I think T. Higgins established himself as an alpha type talent. Jamar Chase is very clearly the alpha, but what I could see also is a bump to Jamar Chase's opportunity, but also he's going to take the tougher coverage, and he doesn't need as many targets to be as effective or more effective than Higgins. I mean, he can house the ball on any play. So T. Higgins for me here was sort of my stopgap at wide receiver. I knew I sort of wanted to check the box with somebody at each position, and sometimes that's how I build. I watch how the board goes. I know that I can manipulate the board sometimes with picks, which you'll see happen here in a little bit. So T. Higgins for me was the guy to take. I really love DJ Moore, but I just really love the fact that we know who T. Higgins' quarterback is for the long term. So it was kind of a no-brainer pick to me. Then we go here, keep going through. Deshaun Watson, not a surprise. News is breaking more and more. Don't know what the suspension will be, but the likelihood that he plays in the NFL again seems better as this video is being released. Keep going through here. Goes Diggs, Pittman. I mean, this is an interesting build from the good doc. Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Diggs, Pittman. Obviously that stack of Diggs and Josh Allen is ridiculous. That's going to score. Oh, excuse me. This was a trade. Wow. See, I'm not even paying attention. I'm running this back and not even paying attention. Swerve got this. Kudos to Swerve, but Swerve, you don't have Josh Allen. So, holy mother of Mary. So back down here, Pittman, Barkley, going through, gets back to me. And at this pick, as we're moving here to the right, I felt like I had to go back to quarterback. So being in a dynasty league, being that it's super flex, I really valued Mac Jones. I've done a deep dive on him. I haven't released it yet, but Mac Jones was an incredible passer last year, despite the fact that he really didn't have the best weapons in the league, but his upside is just so solid. So I wanted to go him, and when you look at the options that were still on the board as they're to the right, whether it was Tua or Wilson, Rodgers, Cousins, Pickett, Brady, Tannehill, right? So to me, he was one of the last great potential upside young players that showed enough to us last year that I believed in him. And I know that Tua is a guy that I debated. What was it, Tua? Was it Mac Jones? Tua got all these weapons, but I decided to go Mac Jones. So I don't regret this at all. I'm glad I went Mac, but this is what I was talking about influence. Because look what happens. The next 4 picks after that are all quarterbacks. So we started a little bit of a run here when I think people realize that they have tiers in their head of where these guys fall. And I think that the Mac Jones, Tua tier, maybe Zach Wilson, but Zach Wilson's probably just below that. And then you get into the Rodgers, Cousins, a little older, Pickett. Don't know much about him just yet. Don't know exactly when he'll start. Brady. So we saw this happen, right? We saw a big, we essentially saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we saw 7 quarterbacks go in 9 picks. And that was the 4th round into the 5th. So not so surprising, but that's how these runs tend to start. And then I think people started to kind of come back on the value. Everybody calmed down. These guys all came back on receivers. These were traded picks, of course, up here. Back on receivers coming through. And then I went J.K. Dobbins. My stack was pretty screwed. As you can see, what happened here was I went Mac Jones because I wasn't willing to reach for Rashad Bateman. I just couldn't do it. My big thing was best player available, best player available, best player available. And I realized that stack could be pretty incredible this year. But I wasn't willing to reach for Rashad Bateman here. Now, I could have made a trade and put myself in a position to select him. But I wasn't ready to cough up the value. I had talked about some of these trades. I just didn't want to give up what people were asking for. And one thing about this draft, you guys will notice, we made it a rule: no trading first and second round picks. Well, no trading draft capital, basically, for the upcoming season until the draft is over. So you could move startup picks, but you could not move draft picks into the season. So I missed on Bateman, was looking at the board here, and I decided I've got T. Higgins. I know that running back can be a difficult position to fill. It's one of the scarcest in the league. This is a little bit of a stack, despite the fact, again, I've got documented Twitter posts. Lamar Jackson rarely targets his running backs. Will that change in the future? I don't know. But to get J.K. Dobbins, a guy that the last time we saw him healthy was incredibly explosive, one of the most explosive runners in the league in a very run-first offense. I got these two guys together, so when they're in the red zone, I may essentially have a lock outside of potentially Andrews or, Bateman in this case. I might have a lock on the player that's going to have the upside to score the touchdown. But I passed on Godwin, who's injured, but I did a hype video on. I passed on McLaurin, who has question marks. Passed on Kamara, Henry, Kenneth Walker. I mean, it makes sense when you look at it why I did this. I think that Dobbins and Walker, I wrote up Walker during the pre-draft season, and him and Dobbins look so much alike from a yards after contact perspective, from a rarely used in the passing game perspective. So I felt like I had to go with my stack here, get a guy that's 23. So I was happy about that. Coming back around here, this was really interesting because at this draft spot right here, I battled this one. I was really watching. I was watching Godwin. I thought maybe Godwin was going to make it all the way to me here, but very clearly he went one pick later, so that really killed me. And then I thought, okay, if Tyreek Hill falls to here, I'll take Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill didn't fall here, so I settled for the older wide receiver who, of course, is going to have the entire wide receiver passing game opportunity to himself. Gronkowski recently retires. We just found that out after this draft. Godwin could miss up to the first 3 to 4 to 6 weeks. So Mike Evans could be an absolute smash in fantasy football. So for me, I wasn't super fearful going with an older veteran here because he's going to produce. He's going to make me a competitor, a contender this year. And I knew that if I did this, I had to backstop later, right? I had to go get younger receivers to insulate the decision that I was making up here. So that was a concerted effort in the future, and you'll see that take place. Really killed myself on the stacks. You'll see the Patriots myself later also. Sorry, didn't mean to cuss. Sorry, Mom. Then watch a lot of these guys go off the board here. Cook going a little bit here. Sutton was a guy that I really liked, but just I wasn't willing to I couldn't reach on anybody. And as much as I like the idea of Sutton with Russell Wilson, and he's a little younger, Mike Evans just could score so many more fantasy points. I mean, it's hard to make a case for anybody that was available at this point scoring more fantasy points than Mike Evans could score, right? Drake London's younger. Yes, Drake London is 7 years younger. But I don't know if Drake London's going to be good. Drake London might stink. I don't know. He's in Atlanta. Who knows what happens? Kyle Pitts was good, not great. I don't know what Drake London will be, right? So I was willing to gamble. Because I think that Evans has years left. Don't know what Brady's going to do in the long term, but Mike Evans has been bulletproof his entire career, and I think he'll remain that way while he's in Tampa Bay. So let's keep moving along here. Tannehill goes. Nothing too surprising to me. I mean, this is right here. The Elliott Montgomery situation is always interesting. It's really interesting how far Elliott's fallen, considering that his contract has him signed till at least, I believe, 2025. I mean, he doesn't have, it's signed through 2026, I think, but he doesn't even have dead cap money that'll be low enough to make him even cuttable to like 2024. Even then, it's like $6 million. So prior to that, I think he's like $13 million and $9 million. He's not getting cut. He was still effective, even though everybody's so down on him. So that's a value right there. It just depends on who you have. Again, McCaffrey to me is very bulletproof in terms of skill set, in terms of longevity. Dobbins was young, so I went that route. So anyways, making our way through here. Kittle goes. Kittle was getting towards the end of the tier that I was willing to play the game on. Kelsey was a little old for me. Had I owned Patrick Mahomes, maybe I would have considered it maybe, but Just too rich for my blood at that draft position. Missed on Andrews. Couldn't get that stack. That killed me. So next best option, I'm sitting here, and it was Darren Waller. That was definitely the guy that I had gone back and forth on. Marquise Brown was a player that I had considered. But at this point in time, having Higgins, having Evans, knowing that if I didn't take Waller here, I was looking at the teams in front of me, and none of them besides this team had a tight end yet. They were going to make the turn. I was just concerned that these guys would go, right? Waller just has so much upside in a tight end premium league. So I went Waller, and I don't regret it. I just didn't think that I would get him if he came back to me. Then I would be deciding between Hawkinson and Schultz and Goddard. And these guys are fine, but they haven't done what Waller's done. And maybe Devontae Adams could certainly help the situation for Waller in the future. So that's why I did that there. Thumbing back through, Clyde Edwards, RIP, disappeared suddenly. And then here I was. I needed more running back help, I felt like. I knew that wide receiver was the deepest and is always the deepest in the draft. I had my 2 quarterbacks. I had at least 2 running backs. I had 2 receivers I could lean on. I knew I could get crafty with receivers later. And it's only a start 2 wide receiver league, by the way. Pretty important factor there. So start 2 wide receivers. So I wasn't going to go balls to the wall like some other people did, even though this is a multi-flex starting roster. But I went Rachaad White here. So I put a tweet out once upon a time. After Mark Ingram finishes I believe the RB9 the year prior, they drafted Alvin Kamara in the 3rd round the very next year. So Leonard Fournette finishes a top 10 guy. They draft Rachaad White in the 3rd round. And as the story for Alvin Kamara, a great pass catcher, went, he was unstoppable from that point on. So I wasn't fearful of Rachaad White. Again, Leonard Fournette's going to be 28 years old by the end of this season or throughout this season. So the shelf life of a running back is not that great. He has outperformed expectation, not outperformed my expectation. I've got a Leonard Fournette bobblehead when he was drafted by the Jaguars. I died on the cross for this guy, okay? I wasn't one of these late people that showed up and punched their ticket suddenly, okay? I punched my ticket a very long time ago. So I was willing to go Rachaad White here, did that. Happy with my draft pick there. Not overly concerned. Looking at some of the guys that I passed on, James Conner, sure, I could have went with that veteran opportunity, that production. He's probably going to be great this year. But again, this is where I wanted to get young. If I'm going to wait on somebody, I want to wait on a younger running back. I just decided I'm going to have some insulated value there too. So I went Rachaad White. Connor goes, Jameson Williams goes, didn't go that route. Ayuk, that was another guy that I kind of battled on a little bit, but it just made more sense for me to go White. Coming back around, Sky Moore, Renfro, Juju, Goddard, Pollard. And this is where I kind of deviated a little bit. So could have gone Amari Cooper here. Could have gone Cooper here. Concern for me by going Cooper was that I knew more receivers were going to go, and I thought that it was really starting to thin out. I thought we were getting away from some of the upside. I thought that we were getting away from, some of the players that I was confident in, and we were getting into the age group or injured players or questionable players. So I went with Watson, a guy who, has pretty high draft capital, went to Green Bay. Don't know what the end game will be with Aaron Rodgers, but assuming Allen Lazard isn't the guy or isn't getting all the work in the world, it's got to go to somebody. They have to throw the ball to somebody. So Watson could show out or have an opportunity to show out in year 1. So I took a risk here, passed on Cooper, which kind of, I don't regret it, but Cooper was far and away my favorite option still available, especially at his age, but didn't go Cooper here. Good on Cody for going Cooper. Smart play right there. Claypool, same story. St. Brown, Cooks, Dotson, Kirk, Hopkins. There goes Mills. And you know what I mean? Like, these guys are all, you're just like, meh. But we don't know anything about Watson. So Watson could suddenly be great in this offense. He could be athletic and fantastic. I tend to sort of battle with that decision a little bit, but I needed to go young. I wanted to backstop Evans. I wanted to, sort of insulate that decision. So I went Watson. Then we get over here, and apparently I decided I was just going to double down on upside. So I went George Pickens. My theory here was I'm going to go with 2 of the highest upside receivers out of this draft class. Had George Pickens not had the injuries, this was a guy that was in the consensus wide receiver 1 overall for this rookie class once upon a time. So clearly the intangibles and the profile, the early production are there. landed in Pittsburgh. This is a team that very clearly could move on from Claypool, Deontay Johnson potentially. We don't know what's going to happen there. So could him and Kenny Pickett be the combination in the long term? Possibly, very, very possibly could be. So Pickens felt good there. The Steelers tend to nail their wide receivers, so I was willing to take a shot here. Daniel Jones going late for those guys that wanted to wait on quarterback. And then this is what I mean. Tony, Thomas, Chase Edmonds. I mean, this was a name that I considered, but I really had to look at the value on the board. I went, okay, I've got 3 running backs now. I've got 2 starting quarterbacks in Superflex. I've now got 4 wide receivers. 2 of them I trust. 2 of them are question marks. So what do I do when I come back? I go with a guy that's been a stud who got signed to a really healthy, big contract despite the fact that he tore his ACL. I had speculated that he would re-sign with Dallas. I thought it was going to be on the cheap. Very clearly, it was not on the cheap. Dallas did not get a break. So even though Jalen Tolbert's a player that I like, Michael Gallup has an insane ceiling in an offense that throws the ball as much as anybody does with one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Dak Prescott. So you get a healthy Michael Gallup down here. If Michael Gallup was healthy, arguably he's going in this Judy range, right? He's going in this Elijah Moore, Sutton, Judy range. So 3 or 4 rounds earlier, has an ACL tear. He's going to survive it, obviously. So to get him down here, I thought that was a hell of a value, and I felt really good about sandwiching these 2 young upside rookies with Higgins, who's proven, Evans, who's going to dominate, and then Gallup, if he comes back healthy, I've got a great third receiver there. So keep going. Malik Willis goes. Suddenly, that kind of probably kicked off the Ritter move. Here's Trubisky, one of the last sort of known starters. Upper row here, Michael Carter, Ramondre Stevenson. That was a name that I was looking at. He was certainly somebody that I had considered. Then it gets to me. Look, I dogged on James Robinson, but the one thing I never dogged on James Robinson for was the talent. Okay, I never said he wasn't talented. The guy's been excellent. And we saw it with Marlon Mack. Okay, he got usurped by Jonathan Taylor. His role kind of was diminished, and he ended up, going in free agency, goes to the Texans. I could see something with James Robinson. I could see Robinson getting a starting gig elsewhere after this. I've done this in a couple of drafts. The Achilles tendon injury is obviously not a great one, but he's already back on the field doing drills, looking better. There's some belief that maybe he comes back this year. I don't know. We saw Cam Akers come back. He had some burst. So I'm certainly not writing him off. And some people might think that that was a risky selection. But as we keep going, look at my other options and look at their ceiling. So David Bell goes, a couple quarterbacks go. We don't know how long Goff will be here. If Goff wasn't in Detroit in 2023, nobody would be surprised. Baker Mayfield may not be a starter at all next year, potentially. Then it's Singletary, Madison, Gainwell. Yeah, sure. I guess if there's an injury, maybe. I don't know. We don't know if Singletary is going to lose his job to James Cook, who went 4 or 5 rounds before him very clearly. 1-to-1, believe that he was going to be there. Madison, yeah, sure, he's great if Cook gets hurt, but Cook was one of the best running backs in football last year. He's not losing his starting job at all. Gainwell started to get a lot of the pass-catching role, but again, Miles Sanders, when healthy, is a great back, so we don't know what's going to happen. So to me, the upside in Robinson was the play for the future. I don't see that future for Gainwell when he leaves Philly. I don't necessarily see it for Madison when he leaves Minnesota. None of these guys have proven that they can carry the rock for multiple years and have standout production. So that was sort of my reasoning. See the rest of these guys go. No names that I really love. Tyrion Davis-Price goes here. His upside could be great in San Francisco. They have a rotation. Elijah Mitchell left a lot of meat on the bone last year. He was hurt. Lynch and Shanahan talked about too many injuries last year, so I like that pick. This was the one that killed me. So I was sitting back thinking that I was going to get Jacoby Myers right here, right? So I could stack him with Mac Jones, even though Jacoby Myers is an undrafted free agent. He signed a second-round tender, still hasn't been extended yet. We don't know if he's going to get extended. There's rumors that he will, but yet to be determined. So it's super flex, right? So Marcus Mariota is the starter. I realize that Ritter is there now, but here's Mariota. And so it was hard for me not to go, I need a quarterback right now. I need another guy, and he's got upside in super flex. So, right? So why not? So I went Mariota there, and I feel good about it. Let me see if I can roll this up a little bit. So I went Mariota there, feel good about it, gave me my third quarterback. And if he's playing well, which he certainly could in Atlanta, then he has trade value. And here I am getting him in the middle of the 13th round. Thielen, Ertz, Gordon, Trubisky, Albert O. Nothing here. Nothing here is crazy. Tyler Algier was a name that I thought about at the Mariota spot. Decided, you know what? Not going to do it. Just going to stick to my guns here. Go with the quarterback. He's going to be more valuable, right? I thought, who's going to have more valuable if they hit? Who's going to have more value? Tyler Algier, who's got later round draft capital in an offense that very clearly could replace him in a year? Or Marcus Mariota, a guy that's still young enough at the quarterback position, went to a relatively good landing spot, is mobile, has proven that he can produce in the NFL. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me there. Then I finally got one stack, right? So I get Hunter Henry. He had a lot of touchdowns last year. Pair him with Mac Jones. So I had known all along that I was trying to secure a stack, and this was one of the first ones that I could actually achieve. Keep following this along. Nothing too crazy here. Woods, Chark, right? These guys are all kind of the same to me. Chark's got upside, but he hasn't produced in a long time. Woods finished top 10 in yards after the catch for 3 consecutive seasons, so comes off an ACL tear, but could have a lot of value in his new destination, possibly. Just did a video on Tannehill. Check that out, because Robert Woods plus Treylon Burks, both yak guys. Ryan Tannehill had no help after the catch last year, and the concerted effort that they put in to bring these two guys in could really give him a bump. Check that video out. Landry, Ridley, Palmer. I mean, this is all just stock and standard. Went Marlon Mack here. Went Marlon Mack at 15.7. I'm addicted to Achilles tendon tears. What can I say? Go him here because the running back, because the age, because the upside, because we've seen him play well before. I had heard that he looked good through beat writers, and suddenly, now the stories are coming out that he could have a big part of this backfield. Obviously, Pierce was selected in, the later rounds. I realize I appreciate the advanced metrics, but if it's not Marlon Mack, maybe it won't be. Dameon Pierce is not the long-term answer here. Again, rarely do these later round running backs, especially like that, end up staples. It happens, but it doesn't happen a lot. And it certainly doesn't happen if they're not elite athletic producers, okay? So keep flying through. This is where I kind of started to punch my ticket on upside players, right? Chenault went, kind of liked him, but couldn't get Chenault. So I go Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson had an 81% snap share last year, looked really good. All it takes is an injury to Allen Robinson or Cooper Kupp, and suddenly he's in. But again, Van Jefferson got a lot of run last year. He's in a monster offense. So hard to not love him here. Has the speed, has the athleticism. And then this is what I'm saying. Crowder, who knows, right? You go down this line, nothing is popping to me here. None of these guys. Collins could have upside. We don't know if he ever fires in this offense. Thornton goes. Didn't want him. Garoppolo, not a starter yet. Then here I go again. Curtis Samuel. I don't know, right? Curtis Samuel has the skill set to be one of these dynamic players. He can run the ball. He can make big plays downfield. He hasn't been healthy, but Terry McLaurin is kind of the one option there. Jahan Dotson gets selected, and Curtis Samuel's still young enough, has a ton of upside. So these were the guys. If they flashed, they have value. They're tradable. They may be guys that I never start. They may be guys that I start when I need it. This is best ball. So I wanted some guys that could really flash on any given week, and these are two guys that can do it. Right? These are two of those guys. Paris Campbell, chef's kiss. Love him. Getting him in the borderline 18th round. You're taking a shot here on these kind of guys. And this is where, like I said, you're just swinging at potential. I had Christian McCaffrey. So what do? I back him up with Deonta Foreman, a player that looked good last year in his opportunity when Derrick Henry was out. So he might clearly have something left in the tank. Shout outs to, again, the Achilles tendon tear. So I just wanted to backstop McCaffrey once upon a time. But here you go. Khalil Shakir, 5th round guy. Terrace Marshall at least has the draft capital. He's in a situation where he could get opportunities. So he fell quite a ways from like a speculative wide receiver standpoint, especially when guys like Osborne are going before him. Osborne, what the okay, and then Darnold goes down here. I think obviously faith in Darnold has waned quite a bit. Pacheco goes here, Calvin Austin, Odell Beckham, blah, 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 blah. Back to me, Will Fuller. Now, was Will Fuller a reach? Kind of. Here's why. Because I really wanted Devontae Parker. Because I believe there is a universe where Devontae Parker is the alpha in the Patriots offense. There is a world. I thought when I was looking at the draft board, hey, I'm going to go Will Fuller here because Will Fuller's younger. I'm going to go Will Fuller. He has the upside. He hasn't landed somewhere yet, so he could land somewhere and gain some value. I'll go Fuller, and Devontae Parker will be here at my next pick. But guess what? The good doc took him. Devontae Parker was not there at my pick. And what's hilarious, and I'll show you guys, is that I was getting browbeaten by the chat because every time I was on the clock, I was just busy. And like 4 hours would go by, and everybody in the chat would put these gifs of people sleeping. And at one point, they put up a poll and said, should we reduce the clocks or kick Nate out of the draft? So anyways, so people were like, when I was on the clock, they're like, for God's sakes, just take Devontae Parker. And I go Will Fuller. And this is one of the only picks that I actually regret. I did it consciously. I wish I would have taken Parker. So that's my one regret. Bourne goes here as well. He was good last year, really explosive, but I just, not a lot of long-term faith. But I thought, hey, Parker could give me a solid 2022 season. Big whiff. Got to Corey Davis again. Same story, right? Young enough in the offense. I thought to myself, well, there's a scenario where he's sort of the alpha in this offense until Garrett Wilson figures it out, even with Elijah Moore here. But he could also end up in another roster. He just has that previous experience. So he's a guy that I think I could get a future draft pick for if I needed it, if he starts to perform well. But that's a big if in a Zach Wilson offense. Keep going down the line. Comes around the corner. And then I went Gardner Minshew because Gardner Minshew is one of these names that's floated around the league. He's a guy that I am willing to bet starts again in the NFL. I can absolutely see a world where Gardner Minshew starts again. So I figured, what's more valuable? Any player that I take right now or Gardner Minshew if he gets starter snaps again in the future? So at this point, knowing that literally any of these players could fade into oblivion over the course of the next year, I was willing to take a shot on the quarterback that I've seen play, seen perform well. He's a guy that locker rooms love, could be a starter elsewhere. So I took a shot on him. And then, look, Mostert goes, Harris, Michelle, Chandler, Jordan Love. Clearly Green Bay doesn't love Jordan Love. So all these guys from Marvin Jones to Sammy Watkins. Now, admittedly, I was considering Watkins here, but thankfully somebody took the loaded Nerf gun out of my hand and took Watkins here. Cody Carpentier, he got a veteran presence in Green Bay that could do something for sure. If he does anything, we know that week one he'll blow up. We know that he'll have a monster week one, and then he may disappear forever out of the universe. But we know he'll crush it in week one. So Anthony Schwartz, right? He was there. He was available. A lot of speed, high draft capital, quarterback situation could change. So I was willing to take a swing here on young upside. Keep going along. Nothing too crazy here. No picks that shocked me. Nobody fell beyond where I think they should have fell. Jonnu Smith, again, upside at the tight end position. This is a guy that a couple years ago everybody raved about. Yards after the catch, absolute monster, super freak athlete in this New England offense, which a couple years ago they drafted 2 tight ends in the 3rd round. We thought, hey, they're trying to rebuild the old days of the Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski offense. Didn't work with the 2 young tight ends they went with. So what do? They go get Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith in the same offseason. So we'll see what manifests there. But I figured, what the heck? Might as well, stack these guys. Jonnu Smith could be somewhere else in the future, but who knows? And then again, Pringle, Brooks, Pirine, Mims, what? Get out of here. I don't want any of these guys. Braxton Berrios? Get out of here. How is he going to start in this offense? I'm just not one of these guys that's willing to dig the fucking steak out of the bottom of the trash can so I can eat it again. God damn it. Go buy another steak. Just go buy a new steak. What are you doing? Braxton Berrios. Get the out of here. You kidding me? No offense to Cody. I get why you drafted him. But I don't play these bullshit leagues where this guy might have a sudden game, and I get it's best ball, might have a sudden game where he plays okay. It's like these guys are going to fade into oblivion no matter what we do. So I shouldn't go off on Berrios in the way that I am, but There is a Braxton Berrios, much like any of these guys, is the equivalent of the unfinished bridge. You're doing 60 down the freeway, and then next thing you know, oh, the bridge isn't finished. Guess we're going off the edge. And that's what happens, okay? I got a lot of stuff to bring to my therapist. Moving along. Obviously, I went Williams here in Atlanta because there's nobody else there outside of Cordero Patterson. I don't know if Tyler Algier is even good. We don't know. And they brought in competition. So, again, why not get the upside of the running back potential here? Has pass catching upside. Julio Jones, right? That's what we got here. I should probably move this. I'm screwing the screen, aren't I? Hold on, Nate. Come on, you're better than that. There we go. All right. Julio Jones goes. Again, these just all speculative. Wallace, Zacchaeus, Hilliard, Likely, Bridgewater, McKenzie. And then it goes to me, Kellen Mond. Okay, hey, 3rd round pick a couple years ago. I just did that Tannehill video. I talked about how everybody said that Kirk Cousins was going to get replaced by Kellen Mond. I remember the enthusiasm. People were so enthusiastic. They're like, oh my God, it's going to happen. This is the guy. Kirk Cousins, death to Kirk Cousins. And guess what? He never played. It did not happen. But if Kirk Cousins gets hurt, if he underperforms, who's the next man up? Kellen Mond has rushing upside. Done deal, right? Okay. Let's keep going here. Nobody. Again, this is the same goddamn story, but here I go. Chris Carson, I know we've got the injury history, but he's been so proven. Does he get a shot somewhere else? Maybe, but I know that anybody that I draft here is not getting a shot. Man, Rex Burkhead has a shot, I guess. Jerick McKinnon, maybe as much as anybody, but when we talk about like realistic starting potential, this was it. Carson was the end of the potential starters. I mean, the literal end of the starters. I don't think he's coming back to Seattle. I think that Kenneth Walker's selection was a sign of that. Obviously, Rashad Penny's going to get every opportunity to start, but that was my mentality here. It's like, guys, none of these guys are doing jack shit short of maybe a little bit of opportunity on any given week. Down here, Westbrook, again, Tennessee, let's see what happens with Burks. Does it take him a minute to get going? I doubt it. This is exactly this is the guy. If I could have not picked anybody here, I would have just not picked anybody here. But I took Westbrook. That's what happened. Bunch of tight ends. Foster Moreau, a lot of upside. He is the Darren Waller burner account. So, if Waller disappears in the night, Foster Moreau, that's your guy. Back over to me, Auden Tate, right? Auden Tate has played well. A lot of big-time analysts are fans of his. I'm not the biggest fan of Tate who ever lived, but in Atlanta with Drake London, I don't know what happens there. They had Brian Edwards, a lot of questions, but Tate's performed in the past, so I figured, what the hell? None of these guys are doing anything anyways. I clearly cannot emphasize that enough. Get down to here. Davis missed on Gus Edwards. Didn't really want to backstop my guy and J.K. Dobbins, but I went Davis. Davis might get a run if somebody gets hurt. Running backs get hurt often, so Davis was the selection there. Then I got auto-drafted at tight end at the end. Big mistake at my part there. And that's it. That's the draft. That's what we saw. Now, if I had to look at these rosters, now I'm going to take myself off the screen for a minute. You guys are only going to hear the sound of my voice as I eliminate myself from the screen. I'm like the Wizard of Oz now. If I had to look at one of these rosters, if I had to pick a roster that I thought, yeah, this roster has a shot to compete with me, they could compete with the king, it would have to start with a roster that had the production at quarterback. And when you see, let's see. Boy, oh boy. This is tough because it looks like a lot of people punted QB2 a little bit. Daniel Jones and it's hard to, for fuck's sake. We're going to have to sort out all these. Let's see. Hold on. Let's go to Cody. If I click Cody, doesn't that do it? There we go. He didn't trade anything, it looks like. I didn't trade anything. Okay, so he's got Murray and Lawrence. What do we got here? Mahomes and Cousins. It's not bad. That's not bad. Waddle, Deontay Johnson, Tyreek Hill, Devonta Smith. Amon-Ra St. Brown. running game is you see what happened is, no, I mean, Fournette will be good this year. Chase Edmonds is going to perform well this year. You've got some other guys here. We don't know if Stevenson might get some opportunity. Got a lot of extra guys in here, but not bad. Like the receivers, like the upside. Waddle and Hill? You gonna start them both? I really hope that Tua Tagovailoa blows up for you. And we got Watson and Herbert. Holy mommy daddy button. If Watson plays again this year, that's going to be an incredibly explosive combination. Barry went with productive veterans. I can't hate on it. Some people do hate on it. I went a little softer on this tactic, but Barry leaned into it. He got Kelsey at ridiculous value based on what he's going to do in performance. Allen Robinson, Keenan Allen, Saquon, of course, slept on. Derrick Henry, a little older, but we don't know when he stops. From a pure production standpoint, this team could smash. I mean, this team could absolutely put up the most points on any given week at everybody's respective ceiling. This could be the team to beat on any given week in 2022. But Barry, come see me in 2023. All right, so Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Javonte Williams, Kenneth Walker, Pittman, Mooney, Elijah Moore. Not bad. Not a bad roster. Boy, it's going to take some heavy lifting to convince me that Fields is going to be an exceptional quarterback in the league. I just think that the Bears are more of the issue than he is. It's tough, right? It's tough, but especially when you take him here. That's really high capital. And, you obviously you miss Lawrence by a pick here. Stafford goes 2 picks before that. So you got to do what you got to do. Obviously, there was a concern that you were going to miss out on quarterback, so I get that. Look at this roster. Whoa! He didn't even trade his picks. He traded no picks. This guy, hold on. Bring myself up. This guy right here. Whose team is this? Oh, it's my team. I like it. I like that team. And it's not because I'm obligated to say it. I actually actively, individually love that roster. It's a great roster. What a goddamn fucking nailed it. All right, I'm out of here. Okay, so let's go back over here real quick. Wrap this up. My guy Danvers. Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott. Got the stack with CD and Dak. This caused some controversy. This almost ripped the chat in half. People didn't like what was traded to acquire this pick because they felt like a free stack was given up. I get the argument, but in retrospect, love the stack, right? Love that stack. Aaron Rodgers with Aaron Jones. Love that stack. Drake London, Judy, Gabe Davis again, start 2 wide receivers. Mixon, Aaron Jones, James Conner, going to get a lot of production at running back. This could be a good team. Wide receiver, a little bit of a question at the second wide receiver spot if Judy pops off, if Gabriel Davis lives up to the hype. I like it. Tight end, Gronk is gone. Bellinger, this is a guy that could perform in year 1. I do like that. Kmet, everybody expects him to take a step forward this year. 1-1. Oof. Well, you got the Lance Samuel stack, Zach Wilson, Garrett Wilson. Okay. Not bad. Running backs, big question marks. Not the biggest fan of James Cook, but when you get him here, I understand the reason he got taken clearly before Nick Chubb here. Will that prove to be a regrettable decision? It's likely. It's possible, and it's likely. Looking at the rest of this roster, wide receiver, solid at the top, got the stack. So tight end, McBride, a lot of people like him. Ertz gets extended, so that stings a little bit. Smith could be a guy that pops off this year. A lot of injuries have kind of kept him quiet and in the background. I'm not really going to look at the depth of these rosters. Not that interested. Holy mommy daddy button. Taylor, Najee Harris, that could be the best 1-2 punch at the running back position in this league. If Tua fires and if Derek Carr performs at this next level like we think he can, that could be a really nice value combination. I love Rashad Bateman this year. Apparently not enough to trade up and do anything with my life. Sutton could have a monster year. A.J. Dillon, I had been headhunting him a majority of this draft. Me and Buzzard actually had some trade talks at this point at my pick right here where I went Waller. I actually told him that I wanted Waller. We had this conversation. Trade didn't work out. He tried to put me over a barrel. I will not be put over a barrel like my father's father. He was put over a barrel. I don't even know. I know he wasn't. So I couldn't do that. Like this roster, Michael Thomas could, if he comes back healthy, he could be a monster. Got Pierce here. Not bad. Not a bad roster. Again, start 2 wide receivers. So I like that roster. It's competitive. Now, I know Brady smashed on some of these veteran values. Woo! Russell Wilson and Matt Stafford and Mark Andrews and Devontae Adams and Alvin Kamara and Chubb and Kittle and Schultz. Okay, so here's the thing. He just took all the value, right? Like all these aged veterans, aside from guys like maybe Mark Andrews, he saw these guys and decided, hey, I'm willing to, I'm willing to, take a shot here, go after some of this value. Doesn't matter how old they are. I'll backstop it later, which is kind of my assumption that he tried to do down here. Got Juju, who's younger. Got Boyd, who's got some time left at the running back position. Singletary's young. Might be getting replaced, but Damian Harris is a guy that's been really good. Not sure that he sticks around in New England. A lot of reports that I read said that they potentially do not extend him. So, but I like this roster. I mean, this is maybe the most competitive 2022 roster there is, with the exception of maybe Barry. These two guys are very good. My team, obviously, very much at the top. Very much at the top. Swerve, we may bump heads constantly, but I respect your hustle, brother. Jamar Chase, Pitts, Stephon Diggs, Dalvin Cook, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Montgomery, Winston. It's not a bad team. I mean, by any means, it's not a bad team. It will perform in 2022. The question is, what's Dalvin Cook look like in 2023? Probably still good. 2024 is more my question mark for Cook. Brady, does he go this year? I kind of think he doesn't. I think that if Brady doesn't win it this year, I cannot imagine him retiring, then unretiring, then leaving after a year. Not happening. And if Brady wins a Super Bowl, he's going to go defend it because he's going to want to try to win them back-to-back. So I think at minimum, we probably get 2 years out of Brady. Who knows? I know that he's got this deal in the works for TV broadcasts, but I'm not going to pretend like I know what Tom Brady's doing. Nobody does. So this is a pretty competitive roster. Again, it's caught me early with the Stephon Diggs thing. Thought this was a stack. It's not. And then last but not least, Lane Mitchell. This was a good roster too. Got Jefferson, Hurts, Kupp. Got Gibson. He's a big Gibson fan. Pickett, Tannehill. So I like that Tannehill and Hurts are going to insulate Pickett's time to produce. That's a nice look right there. Tannehill was a good value in the 6th round. Elliott, again, so cheap when guys that are relative to him, like Nick Chubb, are going, before him. Alvin Kamara going well before him. Derrick Henry, multiple years older than him, going well before him. So just very interesting the way the market has turned on him. Sky Moore, Hunter Renfrow, Gage. I mean, he just took some shots on some upside players here. Sky Moore could be great in this offense. Hunter Renfrow was great last year in Vegas. So Gage is going to open up the year as the guy as long as, Chris Godwin's gone. So I like some of these plays. Got Penny at a value here. I like Pierre Strong. It's a good roster. It is. If I had to pick the best roster, man, this is tough. If I had to pick the roster that I think has the best shot at winning the title in year one, if it's not my own roster, I think I'm going to give it to, I think I got to go Dynasty. Oh boy, it's tough. It's between Barry and Brady Miller. Man, that's tough because I don't know if Watson plays. I'm going to go with Brady here. I think that Brady has the better roster. I realize Kamara's suspended for some games, but I think Brady's got the better roster overall in 2022. Well, again, we have to scroll down a little bit. I'm just looking at the top of it. But just looking down here, Tim Patrick, Osborne, Hamler, Bourne, Duvernay. I'm going to go Brady. It's tough, but I'm going to go Brady. Now, from a pure dynasty standpoint, if I have to go from a dynasty standpoint, I do like Buzzard's roster a lot. If the quarterbacks pan out, he got Bateman, he got Sutton. Ayuk is a guy that's being really slept on right now. Got Goddard at tight end. I think that's a good roster. Being biased, I think my roster is great. Didn't trade any picks either. People were not happy about that. Lastly, if I had to give it to somebody, that's a good roster right there. That's not bad either. Captain Insano, Kyler, Lawrence, Swift, Etienne, McLaurin, has Hawkinson, got Olave, got Freiermuth. All these rosters are difficult to fill towards the end. It's a split decision for me right now. Ooh, that's got some value. That's a tough one. The running backs are not super strong here. I think that's tough ground to make up. it might be bias, but I think, I'm going to go tie. I'm going to go between Buzzard. I'm going to go Buzzard and Captain Insano because they both got, Kyler Murray's a game changer, but they both got two quarterbacks that I can see having a ton of upside. Kyler's the best of the four very clearly. Lawrence has maybe the second most upside of all these guys at their ceilings, but Swift and ETN could be monsters. Obviously, Taylor and Najee Harris are both better of the two, but I like this roster. I like the receivers. I'm going to give it to Buzzard and Captain Insano. It's a tie. It's a tie, guys. Congratulations to you guys. Guys, thanks for checking out this video. Go join the Discord chat. We're going to do other listeners leagues in the future. Tell me what you like, what you didn't like. Tell me where I made mistakes. A lot of fun stuff coming in the future for this group. So, guys, keep riding along with me. I'm having a great time creating content for you. I hope you really enjoyed this, and we will see you guys in the future.